What is going on, guys? My name is Demetri, and welcome to the Rise Productive Podcast. In episode 3, I have a guest, Keaton Walker. We're going to talk about entrepreneurship, minimalism, essentialism, what's the difference, and the beer thing. I don't really want to say the word. So his YouTube channel name and Instagram are just his name, Keaton Walker, and you can find those links in the description down below. Get ready for episode 3 of the Rise Productive Podcast. What is up?
Hey, how's it going, Demetri? Thanks for having me on.
Yes. Glad to have a guest. It's been like a whole 2 weeks of me talking to myself for an hour. It's kind of unfortunate. I mean, granted, I do that all the time. But so tell the people a little bit about yourself, what you're all about, and where you're from and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, so I grew up in like a suburb of Salt Lake City, Utah. And after high school, I'm 22 years old. So after high school, I went on a mission for 2 years to Washington, D.C. I learned Spanish there. Awesome experience. Taught me a lot about just the world and how to help people and how to make things work. So that was 2 years, just immediately right after high school. I actually left like 4 days after high school. So then came back, went to college for a year, and just hated it. Like hated pretty much every second of it. So decided I'd always wanted to be an entrepreneur, and what better time to start when I didn't have any kids or a mortgage or anything, nothing, no risk whatsoever. So I just decided to go for it. And so I started a marketing agency about exactly a year ago and finished my second semester of college and then started it. And yeah, things have gone really well. We've got like 5 people on the team now, doing really well, have clients all over, and we run Facebook ads for orthodontists all over the country. And so that was, that's like my background. And right now I'm just starting a YouTube channel as well as kind of a personal brand and a coaching platform called the Minimalist Entrepreneur, where we talk about why people actually get into entrepreneurship and how to create a business that doesn't take over your life, but that generates you the right amount of income so that you can do things you actually enjoy and change the world along the way.
Some pretty impactful stuff right there. I mean, I don't know many people who gone through the whole process of trying to go to college and starting their own business. Usually people are like, I want to start my own business, and then nothing actually happens. So you did that. That's pretty great.
I was there for a long time, but finally it got painful enough that I took some action, which is good.
Yeah. Did you read the 4-Hour Workweek?
I probably read that maybe 2 or 3 months into starting my business, but I hadn't read it before.
Okay. Because I was just curious, because I know that's a lot of inspiration for people who are like, I want to start my own business and everything like that. So I was just curious. So for me, hearing that kind of stuff is pretty cool, because I talked to you, but we talked before this. Obviously, that'd be weird if I just had him on. I didn't know this. But we talked about how I'd been interested in doing some sort of social media agency and that kind of stuff. I just never took the initiative. So that's pretty admirable to me. I just wanted to talk to you a little bit about, how entrepreneurship has changed your life a little bit, regarding like, you went from going to college and now you're kind of doing your own thing, and with everything going on right now, I just want a little bit of perspective on that.
Yeah. So honestly, I had like a lot of internal issues, just like, everybody has these stories from their past that they haven't dealt with, or like, issues when it comes to their productivity, or just like, getting out of bed in the morning. And entrepreneurship forced me to mature, and it forced me to stop making excuses. And what I've realized throughout the process is that your business is really just a mirror of how you were doing internally. So if you're disorganized, your business is going to be disorganized. If you're having a bad day, your business, the idea is to build systems in your business so that when you have a bad day, your business is okay. But I just remember, like, for whatever reason, I woke up really grumpy one day and I had to get on the phone with a client, and I'm sure that client was like, "What is wrong today?" So there's moments like that just, it forces you to figure out how to make things work even when you don't want to. Yeah. And in addition to that, I'd always been just I had like worked for my family business. That was like the only real job that I'd ever had ever had. And it was, it paid well. I was doing well, but I couldn't work enough hours to really like save any money. I was just always stressed about finances, like literally all the time. And so, I remember closing a client for $800 a month, just a couple weeks into starting the agency. And that was the most money I'd ever made in a day. And I was like, this is incredible. And then I remember a month later charging them again. And I was like, this is incredible. I can't believe, and they're still a client. So they paid me $800 a month for the past year.
Yeah.
And it's just incredible to like do that work once and then continue to have that income coming in. So that all of those things really changed my outlook on the world, and it taught me that anybody can do it. Like if I can do it, anybody can do it. And it just teaches you to think differently. Like, okay, how can I hustle to get a client? And now that I've hustled to get a client, I know if I want to start another business, I can make it happen. And there's failure. Like there's no failure, there's just feedback. And so dealing with that amount of rejection and just forcing myself to do things that I didn't want to do when I first started, all of these things have just helped me mature into a person that I'm proud of, instead of, just like hiding from my problems.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point. Entrepreneurship, from the way I've seen it and the way I've been talked to about it for a while, has been something that you do have to do things outside of your comfort zone all the time. And that's something that maybe in the 9-to-5 job, you're not really going to get as much. Sure, if it's in the right field for you, maybe. But I think seeing and hearing from you what happened with that first client, and like that thrill of it, and like the closing them, and then you get the retainer and you keep working with them. You get to do things out of your comfort zone without having that like absolute stress of, I hate this. You know what I'm saying? Like you seem to, when you close that client, you were just thinking about like, this is something I want to do for myself. And then you managed to do it. It wasn't like you go to work, you get told to do something. It's much different.
Yeah. And there's no one else to blame your problems on, which I think is huge. And there are people who will, start a business and keep blaming their problems on other people, and that's why they don't succeed.
Yeah.
But if you're a normal person that realizes that you're the source of most of your problems, which maybe that isn't a normal person. Probably most people blame it on other people, but when you're
how about a logical person?
Yeah, a logical person. Yeah, there we go. If your income is directly tied to what you do every day, it just lights a fire under your butt, and you start doing what you're supposed to.
Yeah.
So
you go to whatever it is, whether it's a normal retail job or even if it's a salary-based office job, you do a lot or you do a little, and you're probably going to get paid the same. Like as long as they don't fire you. So it's definitely not the same direct correlation. So yeah, I bet that's something that I think for me, I'm trying to build a business or whatever. There's no money coming in. I ain't Mr. Moneybags, but doing the different things on a day-to-day basis, I know if I don't do anything, there's nobody to blame but me. And that's like, it's this constant stress that's not nearly as bad, in my opinion, as if I was doing it at a real job, because I'm passionate about what I'm doing.
Yeah.
So it's the right kind of balance there.
Yeah, it's definitely been a lot easier to enjoy the journey, which is great. Like I couldn't imagine myself enjoying the journey if I was just stuck in a job that I hated, which that's how I was in college. Like I just could not. I was always fixated on the outcome, and starting a business was way different, because I was like, wow, I woke up, I did 4 hours of work, and I really enjoyed everything I did. And even though I didn't make $1 million, I know that the work I'm putting in today is going to pay off down the line, and it's something that I enjoy. So it really helps.
I think this is something a lot of people struggle with in college, though. Like, even for me, I didn't start on the right major. I was going to be a finance major when I went in, and I wasn't really sure why. I think I liked the concept of money and like the stock market. And then, you go to school and you realize like, well, first of all, the program I was in didn't have me in a finance class until I was a first semester junior. That's flawed. But that's besides the point. I just found that I wasn't enjoying it in the different ways that I wanted to. You know, you go to college and you expect like the fun time and hanging out with people, and you're supposed to know what you want to do when you're 18. And if you don't, you're wasting like tens of thousands of dollars a year on something that you don't like. That just sounds really bad.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a tough system for me. I know it works for some people, but yeah, I don't know. This podcast isn't about my thoughts about college, so we'll skip that.
Yeah, that's fair. But I did want to talk to you a little bit about, I mentioned it on last week's podcast, fake gurus. And my man Keaton here has had experience with a fair amount of courses that he's purchased. And I just kind of wanted to talk a bit about that.
Yeah, so I actually made a video on this called Everything Wrong with the Online Course Market. So I've had a lot of experience with different courses. And when you self-educate, it's funny that I ended up spending more on self-education than on college, but it's made me more money than college would have made me in a quick amount of time, which I'm grateful for. But basically, when I first started out, I was I was trying to start the business when I was still in college. So it was like January of 2018, I believe. And so it would have been January of 2019. Sorry. So I was researching marketing. I was doing some marketing for my family business. And so pretty much all of my Instagram and Facebook ads at that time were turning into like how to start a marketing agency, how to do this, how to do that. And so I joined this like boot camp. Like all of these things are just like hooks to get you in and like start listening to the specific guru, right? So I joined this boot camp, and this guy, his name's Travis Stevenson, and he was doing this boot camp about Facebook Messenger and how you can automate Messenger, which ended up being like my business model down the line. So I was glad I, was learning about it, but ended up paying $1,500 for a course that wasn't made yet and software that I could have got for $10 a month. Oh. And the software wasn't even developed to the point where it was like useful for me. Yeah. So basically he was selling, he was pre-selling it, and I needed it right away to work. I needed it to work right away for my clients, and it just wasn't. So, like 3 months in, I was like, wow, this is a lot of money that I just spent on this. And I just realized that this guy is kind of a scammer and like over-promising, under-delivering. And so I ended up switching, I had to like switch all of my clients' campaigns from one software to another. And then, anyways, it just turned into like this long thing where I was like, wow, this guy scammed me out of my money. I asked for a refund. I was too late. And honestly, like that was my first experience with a bad course. But it's funny because I don't see, like, there's some people who are like, that is so wrong. Like all this money that people are stealing from other people and blah, 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 blah. But I think, there's worse things than losing your money. And I think time for me is more valuable. That's fair. And so I don't mind paying a lot for a course. It's going to save me a lot of time. And honestly, that $1,500 I spent, maybe it wasn't the best investment, but it got me used to investing in myself, investing in a business. And so, it's not the end of the world. But just be careful who you buy from. So that was the first course I bought. And then after about 4 months of just like banging my head on the keyboard, I realized that I needed a mentor, like somebody who could help me go from A to Z a little bit faster and without so many mistakes. And, if I got a client ask me a question that I didn't know the answer to, I could go ask. And so I ended up hiring a personal mentor, which I would like recommend that to anyone. It changed my life a lot, and we're still good friends to this day. But I did that. And then I also bought, Sam Ovens Consulting Accelerator course, which was $1,500 as well. And honestly, the two best investments I made in my business. Like, you don't need any money to start a business. You just need mentorship, in my opinion. Yeah. And those two things really helped, because when I was meeting with my mentor, he was like helping me over like specific mindset issues or specific, this client just emailed me back. What do I say to this? And whereas the course was something like really helpful, like, okay, I burned out. I worked 8 hours today. doing some random stuff. So I'm going to go like watch this course and like see if I can be more effective this way. And so balancing those two was super helpful for me. The problem came when I started to like get on the treadmill, the fake guru treadmill, I think is what CoffeeZilla calls it.
Yeah.
And I just like bought into the idea that I needed more, like, and this is part of why I started the Minimalist Entrepreneur, is because I was like, okay, I have spent this much on mentorship and now I need to spend even more, so that I can, level up my business. And it's a lie that is like put out in that space, because once people start making money, they have even more money to spend on. Yeah. So they're selling these higher level programs and you're like, oh, this is going to change my life. And so like actually 2 months in, I ended up buying another course for $1,000 and included a software. And I probably broke even on what I did there. It was like this online review platform, and it was it was an interesting thing, but it didn't work as well as, obviously nothing usually works as well as the course seller says.
Yeah.
So that was another one. And then a few months later, I ended up buying a $6,000 course to learn about selling a course. And so the problem was I actually ended up, like, if you count what I spent on that course, I probably lost like 12 grand trying to sell that course.
Yeah.
And it's just, like, again, if I had just like taken a step back and said, all right, what do I actually need to learn? Do I need to know how to sell a course right now? Or do I need to know, I'm 6 months in, there's no way I know everything about how to service client the right way and how to get them the best results. And so if I had just focused on that, like, I was just underestimating the value of retainers. Like, counting on a certain amount of money coming in from each client every month is very helpful. And I wanted this course thing because it's so scalable. You can sell it for whatever you want. And it just ended up losing me more money in the long term, and both in like opportunity costs and clients that we lost and all sorts of stuff. Yeah. So I've spent about 14 grand on courses and self-education, whatever you want to call it. And do I regret most of those decisions? Probably not most of them, but I definitely regret like 6 grand on a course is just it's just too much.
Yeah, so a lot of money. I mean, hey, they talk about colleges ripping you off. I will say this: $3,000 for a college, or $3,000 or $4,000 for the college course is cheaper than whatever he was selling you. So
yeah, that's true. I'm a fan of the course market as well, just because it allows, it's like direct to consumer, and if your content's actually good, people are going to share it, and then like it forces the teacher to be really good. Whereas in the college, like, they might have like standards for how good you need to be at teaching, and there are some teachers who are really great, but then there's also it's just like there's not as much incentive. But then it creates this thing where online the gurus, like, all they are, they're only good at marketing, and they're not actually good at like product creation. And so everybody's really good at marketing, and they're
trying to out-market each other. They're trying to out-course each other. Whoever spends the most and makes the most clickbaity material wins.
Yes, exactly. So it just creates like this distortion in the market, which is unfortunate, and that's what I'm trying to speak out against, and hopefully build products to help with that. But yeah, that's my experience, and learn from my mistakes. And again, like, at the end of the day, money's not going to go with me after this life. And, the knowledge is. And so sometimes I just think about it as, it's the tuition of life, and it might be, really expensive sometimes, and, learn from that. And in the future, you can make better decisions. So
I think that's good. I definitely think you touched on some stuff that was, the positive side of online courses, because there are good online courses. Like, I learned everything I did about SEO through a course. I learned everything I have about Google Ads through a course. And some of those things are going to be outdated. But like the day it dropped, it was quality information, and they weren't in glamorous topics. They weren't trying to market me. I just literally was searching for SEO content. And could I have looked it up on YouTube? Yeah. I mean, but it's that road of trying to do something quicker and get more concise information quicker. And I think you touching on the $6,000 course being kind of a mistake. I think it comes down to, like, for me, I'm still learning this. I mean, we're both 22. Doing things too much too fast. Like, you get that retainer for that client for the $800 a month, like you were saying. And I'm sure in that moment you thought, I can get 7 of those, 8 of those or whatever. And you're like, boom, income done. I got this in the bag. And I feel like they pitched you that dream of being able to scale what you were doing. And instead of just thinking to yourself, let's build the business, let's get, slow it down a bit, you were just like, yeah, this sounds good.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I think that was the thing that made me the angriest. Like, honestly, the course is good. It's like, I think Sam Evans really he's one of the only course sellers that puts everything into the course and just like crushes it. Mm-hmm. But I think I was more upset with myself that I just like bought into the marketing.
Yeah.
And so, it's just, and it's dumb because like I'm the business owner, I'm the marketing, I should understand like how this all works, but whatever.
Yeah.
Money's money.
I'm not can ever claim that just because I do marketing and stuff like that, I still get that sort of feeling that the majority of people get when they're getting pitched something really well, because it works regardless of whether like other fake gurus probably sometimes are looking at each other like, it looks like some good stuff. No. Yeah. Also, there are real gurus out there. Just want to put that into the podcast. So this doesn't come back to bite me one day. But I guess moving on to the next topic, we both were exposed to minimalism and essentialism the past few years. For me, minimalism is the first thing I was exposed to. I talk about Mac Diavella a fair amount on this channel. He's a great guy. I don't know him, but he's a great guy.
Demetri's his biggest fangirl.
I am his biggest fangirl. I'll openly admit it. I mean, he commented on one of Keaton's videos, and I was like, what? I wish it was me. I gotta make a video on minimalism if I ever get to being more important on YouTube, so that he can comment on my videos, and that would make my year. But talk to me a little bit about how you were exposed to minimalism and essentialism and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, so I am a book fiend. Like that's one of the reasons that I knew I would do well dropping out of college, is just because I read all the time, and obviously took a lot of online courses too, which wasn't a thing until after I dropped out. But I read Essentialism. One of the things that I'll definitely have in my future household, and that I had growing up, was like, my dad has this Audible account. He's like, yeah, whatever you want to buy, like I'll pay for whatever audiobooks you want. And that was like honestly so life-changing for me. So I'll definitely do that for my kids. But I read Essentialism by Greg McKeown in my junior or senior year of high school, and it's just incredible. Like the whole philosophy behind it, just like less but better, and living a life true to yourself instead of the life that other people expect of you. All of these things just like came together to mean like a very, it became my life philosophy. And like to this day I've been thinking about this, but I really want to like start incorporating reading Essentialism every single day, because it's that important to me. And that book changed my life that much. But then minimalism, I kind of like, my sister was like, oh, minimalism, like I like to not have a lot of spoons in my kitchen, like cooking spoons. And I was like, what is this thing? This is so weird. And I decided to make, I was like a huge fan of Essentialism. I thought minimalism was just like for hipsters and just like some weird thing about having less spoons. And so I decided to make a video about minimalism versus Essentialism. And eventually, originally it was going to be me like painting this negative picture of minimalism and saying like, oh, this is only for hipsters and you should really be an essentialist. But when in my research, I came across Joshua Fields Milburn and Ryan Nicodemus, the Minimalists, and also Joshua Becker, who runs becomingminimalist.com.
They have a podcast, right? Those guys, the Minimalist podcast.
I have a podcast. Yeah. So I came across what they were saying about minimalism, and I watched the documentary, which was made by Matt D'Avella, and I was like, wow, this is so much different than I thought it was. And there are a couple things that really stick out to me from the documentary and from what the minimalist said. And one of them was the 30-day minimalism game, which I was like, okay, I'll just give this a shot. And basically what you do is on day 1, you give away one thing. On day 2, you give away 2, all the way up to day 30. And so it's like 465 items in a month. And I was like, there is no way I have that much stuff to give away.
It's a lot of stuff to give away.
Yeah. And I started, and within a few days I was like, wow, this is actually life-changing, because I realized that your physical world is really, just like I talked about earlier about your business, your physical world is a mirror of your internal world. So your room's messy, your life is going to be a little bit messy. You've got like a closet full of like old stuff that you haven't looked at. You probably got some baggage in your past that you need to take care of. Like it's actually like spooky how close the thing, like you just look at it for 30 seconds, you'll be like, wow, that's really weird. And so I started that game and just totally changed my life. Like super cool to see what my possessions say about me, what my possessions mean to me, and which ones I had that didn't mean anything to me, and throwing those away, giving those away, if that was difficult or not difficult. And it just taught me a lot about myself. And so that was the first thing. And then the second thing that really stuck out to me is in the documentary, there's this investment banker, and he talks about how he graduated from college. He was like, had the corner office. He was doing so well, this investment firm in New York. Yeah. They invited him to come in to be a partner at the firm. I don't know how long he had been working there, but like for his age, making that much money, it was just insane amount of money. And he was like, he said he left, but he was working like 80 hours a week. Jesus. Like 60 to 80 hours. And he left his boss's office and he went back to his, and he said he just started to weep because he couldn't walk away from that amount of money, but there was so much more that he wanted to do with his life than just work 80 hours a week. And
I think everyone agrees that they probably want to do something different.
And I think that was the moment where it really clicked for me. I was like, oh, minimalism isn't just about the stuff that you own. It's about how you live your life and why you live your life that way. And so it's most of the things that we do are just society informed decisions. Like, oh, I wanted this job because it's going to make good money, which is going to allow me to have a nice house, which is going to allow me to have a nice car. And if you go through that list, you're like, which of these do I actually care about? Yeah. And for me, I care about my family. I care about like having an impact on the world and leaving some sort of mark that I was actually here, rather than just like owning possessions. And yeah, so those two things kind of clicked for me. And I consider myself like even more of a minimalist than an essentialist now, because I see how much our possessions and how much spending money on things that we don't need affects our lifestyle and what we're able to do. Like we talked about the fake guru treadmill. There's also the rat race, or the treadmill of like lifestyle inflation, where you get a nicer house, a nicer car, all of these things. And that turns into, a life where you wake up, you've got 4 kids, you're overweight, you got a mortgage, and you're like, how the heck did I get here?
I'm making all this money and it's really not doing anything for me. I think for me, it's definitely a lot of things you touched on. When I've been exposed to minimalism and I realized that the physical embodiment of what I have going on is a direct representation of how I feel about things, I notice it more and more in my daily life. My desk, it's supposed to be decluttered, and I make a point of that. But I notice the more work I'm doing and the more I'm stressed, the less I seem to care whether I have, I have this weird napkin thing. I like hoard napkins. I don't know why. It's some childhood thing. They took the napkins away from me when I was at the dinner table. It's the whole thing. But like, I clean it up usually, but as I've gotten older, or not older, sorry, as I get more stressed and I work on more things, I notice that like the mental baggage is being shown on my desk, or it's being shown in my room. Like how tidy my bed is being made. Like the more you put on yourself and the more you're you're kind of stressed and you're thinking about all these extra things, it manifests into little things that you don't even notice. But yeah, for me, I've been, actually, you know what? I haven't watched the Minimalist documentary yet. Can you believe that? Big Matt Diavella
Yes,
fan.
I can. Honestly, I was like, oh, I don't need to watch that.
Yeah.
It's like, it's this weird thing where you don't feel like it's going to make any difference, but actually it's so good.
Yeah. Okay. You recommend? Because I got to watch it.
Yeah.
It's on Netflix, so I don't really have an excuse. But I really liked what you said about the way that you had your mind change about minimalism. When it was first introduced to me as well, I thought, what?
Yeah.
Why? Okay, first of all, the first exposure I had to minimalism was Matt Diavella's video. So my first initial reaction was that intro of 45 seconds he made, which was just parody of him being like, he only has the bowl, and
it doesn't add value
so
to my
over the
life.
top.
I don't own it.
Yeah, it was just so over the top. I was like, what? And I actually paused that video and didn't go back to it for another day. And I was thinking in my head, like, man, what the heck is this minimalism thing? Like, it's stuck in my head, but I didn't finish the video, which
so you paused it at the parody part.
Oh yeah,
like
I paused at the parody part because it was just so over the top. I'm like,
yeah,
this is awful. I don't live like that.
Yeah.
And then, okay, if anyone didn't get spammed by Matt Diavella videos last spring on their YouTube recommended, you just weren't on YouTube. And I got it recommended to me again, and I'm like, Jesus H, what? I don't want to. Okay, I'll watch the video if you're gonna get shown in front of me every 5 seconds. I open up a YouTube video, and I kept watching because YouTube had implemented the play past what you had already watched thing. I don't know if people really remember, but about 3 years ago, they didn't have the saved memory of where your Google account left off in a video, but now it's a thing. And it kept going, and then I realized like 3 seconds in that it's a parody, and I'm like, oh, so that was just a meme. And finished the video. Obviously loved the content, big fanboy, but like in all honesty, he makes good short films every week. And it exposed me to the concept of minimalism, and I thought to myself, man, I do have a lot of stuff I don't need, like immediately. And I thought when you brought up the lifestyle inflation thing, for me, I've always been someone who, if I spend more money, if I make more money, I don't necessarily spend more money. Like if I had to put a number on it, if I do the math right, last summer I saved 80% of my income from my internship, but 15% of that was on gas.
Yeah.
So like I always spend little. So I'm a financial minimalist, or that's just a fancy way of saying frugal. But then, I get more into looking into the Matt Diavella videos and intentionalism, and I watched the interview he did with Gary Vee, which is very good. I don't know if you've seen that. I actually just half rewatched it today. But when you think about minimalism in the more intentionalism sort of way, or just the fact that you should own things that bring value to your life and get rid of things that doesn't really bring value to your life. There's so many little things that I was just like, do I need this? I have a habit of hoarding old shirts. I think everyone has that problem. And then when I watched a video of Matt Diavella talking about how his wardrobe is just one shirt, and I was like, yep, that's me in like 5 years. I honestly, I should just wear the same shirt in every video, because it'd make it so much easier. I hate having to choose what I wear. So I got to get on that train.
Yeah, you got to do that. And one thing I'll add is that like money, once you learn how to increase your income enough, like money becomes, it's just the same thing. Like you said, it's not about not spending money. It's about spending money on things that bring value to your life.
Exactly.
And not spending money on what society wants you to. Like, let's say you're really into travel and you spend, thousands of dollars a year on travel. There's nothing wrong with that.
No.
As long as you're saving some every month and you're doing it because you want to, not because everybody else wants you to. Like, you can be more rich in terms of life enjoyment with less money if you just like ruthlessly get rid of the expenses that don't matter to you.
Totally
and
agree.
Spend big on the things that do matter to you.
I think, I'm plugging my dad every 5 minutes in this podcast. I feel like last week I did that. But I think a big thing for me that made me realize intentional spending is the way to go was we went on vacation as a family every year, but everything else we just didn't get. You know, when we had a TV, and I'm going to talk about this in a video, actually 2 days after this comes out, I think, or maybe the weekend, I don't know. So I'm trying to talk about this in an upcoming vlog, but my family had a TV, like one of those big bulky ones, you know, with like the bottom base, like before HD was a thing, just giant TV. And the sides started to curl up, and like the frame wasn't properly showing the video anymore, but we just kept it for like another year and a half because you know what? It wasn't going to bring value to his life. He was just like, you know what? Hey, we watch TV like at night. I don't really care. But what was important was going as a family, spending time with each other for a week, not having to worry about his work at all, and making memories with his kids. That's more important than him spending money on a new TV. Which, looking back on that decision, like as a kid, I was like, man, can we just get a new dang TV? I mean, like, what are you doing? Like this thing is this is past its expiration date. And, but looking back on it, it was just those type of purchases and a lot of the things that I'm going to maybe purchase for the channel, if I end up deciding to, are going to be because it's going to bring value to my life. If I buy a vlogging microphone, because I have like one to sit down with, but if I do that, I'm going to be exponentially more happy than if I waste it on something like you were saying with what this sort of consumer culture is saying what you need to spend money on.
Yeah. My mom has this saying that we used to have foreign exchange students a lot at our house, and the foreign exchange student, one of them was like, I need to memorize this and take it home with me. She's from Brazil. Yeah. But the statement is, use it up, wear it out, make it do or do without, which is like, we have totally like so many different things like that at my house that are just like, it honestly be like this library bag. It's like a pink ratty old library bag, and we would always take it with us when we went to the library as kids, and like there's so many memories with it, and it's still hanging up, and it's something that does add value to our lives and costs probably like $5, and it's just, you know, there's so much life to be lived outside of spending money on stuff you don't want.
And I think for me that's good to hear, because I think a lot of people don't take the time to appreciate the things that they do have. With our consumer culture is just a problem globally, but in the United States, I'm sure you agree. Like, there's an issue, I believe, and I'm not trying to say all parents are bad. I'm just saying there's a need for people like Matt Diavella or whoever is, or the Minimalist, talking about these subjects, because I feel like it's just an uncommon subject that parents have with their kids, because it's not common. You know, if 80% of the country is spending all their income, where are they going to be able to teach the next generation that you don't need to buy everything, because they are. So I think it's really good that you had something like that growing up, because it's not the craziest common thing, and it's not lost on me that my experiences are a little bit different than technically the majority of the American population regarding financial frugality, because it's not the way people live, sadly, right now.
Yeah.
So I think that was good on that topic. I want to move forward to the beer thing.
Got it.
The Roni. I'm trying to think of all the different words YouTubers have used recently for it. But I just want to talk about, you know, we've both been doing this sort of self-development YouTube experiment. He actually made a video called My YouTube Experiment. It's pretty good.
I appreciate that.
But I want to talk to you about how you've been able to take this time, go scale back a bit and think to yourself, how has my life been a little bit different than maybe I've thought? You know, take me through how you've changed your perspective during this time.
So I was on this like 3-week long trip in January. I went to DC, and then I went to El Salvador, back to DC, and then came back to Utah. And I hadn't even heard about the beer thing until I was in El Salvador, and I was like, what is this? And like, that was just kind of a joke, right?
Yeah.
And then eventually, like, it got to the point where all of my clients, like 90% of my clients, I think we had 2 active clients. All of my clients had been shut down. Like, they're all local businesses, and like things just it was like somebody hit the pause button on everything I was doing. And it was really fascinating to me to see what I did with my time, because I was like, okay, I have all this time. I know what I want to do. I want to make like a self-development YouTube channel. Like I've been wanting to do this forever. And then it got to the point when I was making all these videos that I was like, what am I really passionate about? What do I want to do long term? And I knew eventually I wanted to leave my marketing agency. It was more like an entrepreneurial experiment that was making me good money that I wanted to stick with until probably October of this year. But I didn't have the courage to be like, oh yeah, I'm going to do it right now. And so, it was just this weird thing where I was like, all right, I'll just do it 6 months earlier, 7 months earlier. And so I talked to my partner and my team members. I was like, hey, I'm probably going to leave. And I just started making videos full time. And then, it was about 2 months into that when I realized it wasn't going to be a good idea for me to just like leave my only source of income completely. Yeah. And it's gotten to the point where it doesn't take me very much time. And so it's honestly been like, if anyone's read the 4-Hour Workweek, he talks about how to like create remote working agreements if you have a job. And so you'd say, okay, just let me work from home for one day a week, and then 2, and then eventually you work up to the point where you're like traveling the world and you're still working and like getting everything you need done, but you never have to like go into the office. Yeah. And he teaches you how, the 80-20 rule, how to get everything done in an 8-hour workday in 2 hours. And so there's some super cool stuff in there. But honestly, for me, it's been a point to step back and reflect and be like, okay, I was spending 8 hours working, but how much of that was actually necessary?
Work.
Yeah. And it was all work. But how much of it was like, I just don't know what else to do with my time, therefore I'm going to work.
A direct value add sort of thing.
Yeah. And Tim Ferriss says like 9 to 5 is completely arbitrary. The world has agreed to shuffle papers between that time. It doesn't mean that you have to do the same thing. Fair. And I had a really bad case of that. Like I did love what I do love what I do, and I continue to love it, but it was, it was too much. And I wasn't like, my social life was really suffering. I was doing a lot of just like spending too much time working. And because I felt, again, like this entrepreneur hustle culture, all this, I felt like I needed to fit into that. And so I think it's been very helpful for me to take a step back. And I think it's been like a collective deep breath for the world in a lot of ways. Like everybody stepped back and said, what the heck am I doing with my life? And it's been the same with me. And I consider myself to be a very intentional person. Like I've done a lot of good things and like continue to try to make sure that everything I do is intentional. But it's not until, the world goes on pause that you really like take a step back and really ask yourself,
what am I doing?
how much of what I'm doing with my life do I actually care about?
Yeah.
And, it's always going to be, Greg McKeown talks about how like, there's a circle in the middle of like how you're an essentialist, and then there's a bigger circle, which is like the non-essentialist part of yourself. And the idea is to grow the middle part so that it's basically eclipsing the big circle. And it's hard. Like it's always fluctuating, and different periods and eras of your life are going to be different. But I'm super grateful personally for the opportunity that it's been to reflect and just kind of like change direction. I wouldn't say I'm grateful for all the time I've had to spend at home, because I was already doing that. Yeah. And like I realized like, oh, I need to work less, and then I didn't have anything else to fill my time with. But the pivot is what has like made the biggest deal for me.
Yeah, I think for me too. I've been trying to tell people a lot that you have so much extra time, and I think it's good that people are relaxing to a certain extent. I've talked about that a little bit, but it's really good that we have this extra time, because the daily grind of everything is just, it doesn't really let you intentionally, well, you can intentionally reflect, but most people don't even have the time to think to themselves, I need to think about how my life's going, because they're just so in the 9 to 5, and they're so into getting that extra couple hours at night to just be a blob and be done.
Yeah.
Because
we're drones.
Yeah. That's how the way the world is working right now with how the structure of the work week is. And I think it's cool that the 4-hour work week has been so impactful on so many people, because it's really true. If you do any sort of work at the end of the day, you realize to yourself, like, I did a lot of stuff that I'm not really sure how much it added direct value to what I'm doing. And for me, I've been doing a lot. I had school. I had the end of my undergraduate career, so that was great. And I've been doing YouTube as well, and I run all the time. And I think for me, this extra time has been good to utilize it and build what I've wanted to for a while, because I generally reflect a lot. The college I go to preaches reflection, and I actually took that to heart more than I feel like a lot of people maybe in my school did, because, you know, you get preached something when you're in a position of you're in your late teens, early 20s, and you just kind of, it goes one ear out the other, because, like, okay, they're just saying reflection is good. But I think it's something that I've been doing a lot of. Every week I schedule time to reflect, about 30, 45 minutes. I do a lot of planning and a lot of reflection, because I feel like if you plan better and you reflect better, you know what you're doing, you know why you're doing it, and you know whether it's making you happy or not. And this extra time is ideal for people to do that. And I really hope that they're taking advantage of that.
Yeah, big time. And similar, if you've read How Will You Measure Your Life, another excellent book, but he talks about how he was trying to figure out how he could commit. He knew what he wanted to do with his life, but how could he commit to becoming that type of person? And he was in Oxford, and like his religious beliefs were being challenged every single day, and he just couldn't figure out how to, you know, he realized that it was time to like really sit and reflect. And so he spent an hour literally every single day reflecting on the purpose of his life and trying to commit to what he knew he wanted to do. And he said, you know, I could have spent an hour studying. If I had spent that hour studying like whatever it was, like some regressional analysis for economics, it would have been a waste of time. And I'm so glad I spent that time reflecting on the purpose of my life, because it drastically changed the direction that I went.
I think of it like this. If you never reflect on what you're doing, and you could have been drawn to do something, like maybe he was doing the regressional analysis for a degree that in the end he never really wanted to do. I don't know if that ended up being the case, but if you don't ever reflect on what you're doing, you're putting hours into something that theoretically could just be a pit of wasted time.
Yeah.
And you don't know that if you don't take the time to think, like, is this worth it? Do I want to do this?
Yeah. Love that. Stephen Covey says, if your ladder's on the wrong wall, every step just gets you to the wrong place faster.
Yeah. Yeah, that's so true. And I mentioned, I think in another podcast, talking about if you have a destination that you're setting out for, doing little things towards it every single day rather than delaying the start of it is important. Mm-hmm. And I don't have a problem with people experimenting, but you can't really, it's not the same between like that wasted hour versus that time of reflection. It's not the same as you trying out some sort of business endeavor and it not working out. It's okay if it doesn't work out. That's not what I'm trying to say. If you don't reflect on it though constantly, you don't know whether it's a waste of time. You know what I'm saying? So that's a really good point. I like the ladder analogy. I've never heard that before.
It's excellent.
That's excellent. Yeah. I need to read more. Do you have any suggestions on I'm not going to ask you suggestions on books, because all these books are being suggested, and I don't have a problem with reading. I think I need to take a dopamine detox or something, because I haven't made myself read in a while. That's not virtual. So, yeah. Do you have any suggestions? Do you like take time every week and plan like, this is my reading time, you know what I'm saying?
I mostly do audiobooks. Like I have a really hard time reading real books. Like I'll read scripture every day, but that's pretty much it. Like that's the only thing that I like look at and actually read mostly. But yeah, I have a spreadsheet with probably like 200 books that I want to read. Awesome. And I need to reread all the books that I've read. So I'm just, I'm happy to share, but my top ones, like favorite book of all time, Essentialism. Under that, Atomic Habits was very, very good. Mm-hmm. And, I don't know. After that, it really depends on like what you're hoping to get out of your reading. But yeah, I have a lot I could share with you.
Do you use Audible?
Yeah.
How much is that a month?
So I'm actually still in my parents' account, so I don't know.
Nice. You know, my biggest thing is I am such a cheap person that I won't spend money on I won't spend money on things that I should. Like we talked about, like the intentional spending. So I'm so cheap that I'll hold on to this thought of the longer I wait, the cheaper it's going to get, or the more money I'll have, so the more justified the purchase will be. And a big thing for a long time has been Matt Diavella's Patreon account. Like I know for a fact if I got that, then I'd be so happy. And I just kept putting that off. But actually, I got a surprise for my girlfriend on, when was that? When did I graduate? That's kind of sad. No, after I finished my last class.
Okay.
Last Tuesday. Girlfriend texted me saying she had a surprise. And the next thing I know, she signed me up for Matt DeVell's Patreon. And it's like, wow. Yeah, I paid for a month for you. And I was like, I need
a whole $8.
Oh yeah, it's like $8 or $12 for the premium, or like he has the 2 tiers.
Yeah, I think it's 12 you're at.
And she's like, I got this for you for a month because you graduated and you deserve to get you deserve to do it for yourself, but I know you're not going to. And on top of that, like you could just binge it in a month. Like, why are you making that thought in your head of, oh, I don't know if I can pay $12 a month? And I'm like, she's like, dude, you can just binge it in a month. You're gonna do that regardless. And I'm like, yeah, you got a point. So definitely that I've been thinking about intentionally spending more, which is kind of, I don't know, it seems counterintuitive, but man, I don't spend money on nothing. Like, especially when you're at home, I can't go out and eat. I can't go out and eat. I was spending, like a little bit, like, I don't know if you've ever done this with people you're dating before, but like I take turns. So like every other week I was spending like $15.
Yeah.
Now I just can't do that because quarantine.
Yeah.
So I got to be more intentional about my spending, but actually doing it, because it genuinely made me happy when I found that out. I was just I watched a behind the scenes video and I was just like, I've been waiting for this for months. So don't be like me and be that annoyingly frugal. Because when I got this Logitech MX Master 2, can you see it?
Yeah.
Okay. And I got this nice keyboard, which is more difficult to lift. This MX Master keys. I did wait a long time, but in my opinion, I waited too long. So try to find the right balance, guys, between not purchasing everything you think you need and not depriving yourself to the point of exhaustion. Because sure, I was exhilarated, but I should have already seen all that content. I was deprived. There's a difference between depriving yourself for no good reason and being intentional.
And it affects your relationship with money too. So like you want to, money isn't just to save. It's like money was made to spend. And so, it's tough. And like, there's these scripts we grow up with for sure that affect everything, but everybody's got their own journey, and eventually they'll get to the point where they understand like how to spend and how to save for them personally.
It's good that we're young, because they say you get set in your ways around 35. I don't know if you've heard that before. I mean, that's a mom quote, so to be true. But I think it's good that we're on that path of self-development now, because sometimes people get to the age where they don't really know if they've done the right thing for so long, and that's why I'm trying to make the content. I don't know about you, but I genuinely think maybe there's some ideas that are just not being given to people, and if I can impact a couple people and help them in a little bit of a way, that'd be huge. Because I've talked to Keaton about this, guys, but like Matt DeVell's video after that, I mean, I went from really not liking getting up in the morning to then, he made that 5 a.m. video, and I fell down the rabbit hole of a couple more of those. And the next thing I know, I'm very into productivity and self-development, and I'm happier now than I was because I reflected And if I had never reflected, I would have just been doing the same thing and thought, this is life. This is what it is. So I'm glad you're doing what you're doing. I really like the fact that you are intentional about the things you do, and you learned about essentialism and minimalism, and you've been exposed to that. I mean, we're both young, and we might think we have old minds or whatever, but genuinely, like, I'm happy that that's the case for both of us, because good stuff. I think we can get to the end of this podcast. Do you have anything else you want to say?
No, I think that's it. Just, awesome being on with you, and great to discuss some important things. And same thing, like this content, I think we underestimate, like, you get a few hundred views when you're first starting out, but those are a few hundred people whose lives are a little bit better because of what you've watched. And at least you're not making makeup reaction videos or something like that. So
yeah, I always say the one big story of my former YouTube career before this was I was making gaming videos and vlogs that were cringy, and sure, it was fun, but I wasn't really impacting people in the same way that I think or want to now. And at the same time, I did learn from this guy. Do you know who Morgs is on YouTube?
I've heard of him, similar to Mr. Beast, right?
Yeah, sort of a prank channel with his family kind of guy. Mm-hmm. And he and I were at a similar subscriber count. We're both doing something called Shout Out Saturday. And he exploited, I mean, I don't want to use that word, I guess. He utilized commenting on people's videos and saying, I'll give you a shout out if you like and comment and subscribe on my channel. And he did it to the point of where he then reached 20,000 subs. And then he had to cancel it because it was too much work. But the algorithm then got him fined because he was at 20,000 subs and he had insane engagement. And I'm just like, I don't really want to do that. So I'm glad this is more impactful stuff, but that's a whole other thing. I really appreciate you being on the podcast, and maybe I'll have you on again, but thanks for the talk. And thank you guys.
I'll see you next time.
Thank you, Keaton. And I will see you guys in the next one.